The rain fell hard on the metal streets of the city. Neon lights flickered above. Throwing colors across puddles, people hurried past. Their faces hidden under hoods, but one figure moved slower, weaker. It was a young alien girl, her skin pale, her eyes glowing faintly with hunger, and her clothes torn and wet. She carried nothing but a small bag on her shoulder. Inside it was empty, no food, no coins, nothing. She had walked all day, searching for a place, a chance, anything, but every door she had knocked on was already shut in her face. At the first bakery she had begged, "Please, I can clean, I can wash, I can do anything." The human owner had frowned, shaking his head. "No work for your kind," he said, closing the door slowly until only darkness remained. At the mechanic's shop, she had stood in the smell of oil and smoke, her voice shaking. "I can carry tools. I can sweep the floor." The workers laughed. "Go back where you came from, girl. This place is not for you." Their laughter followed her long after she left. The market stalls were no different. She tried to help lift boxes, to polish counters, to fetch water, but the traders turned their faces away. Some whispered ugly words, some threw scraps at her feet, but no one offered work. Her stomach growled loudly as she walked, pressing her hands against it to keep the sound from escaping. She had not eaten in 2 days. The world around her smelled of fried food and roasted bread, but it was all locked away behind glass too far from her reach. As the day turned to night, the city grew colder. She stopped at another door, her legs trembling. She knocked gently, her voice soft. "Please, just a little work. I will do anything." The door opened slightly. An old alien woman peeked out. Her face twisted when she saw who it was. "Go away, child. No one here will take you." And the door shut with a loud bang. The girl stood still for a long moment, rain dripping from her hair. Her eyes burned, but no tears came. Tears were a waste when no one cared to see them. She walked further down the road, her shadow long under the glowing signs. Around her, people passed, humans and aliens. Some looked at her with pity, some with disgust, but none with kindness. Each step she took felt heavier, as if the ground itself was pushing her back. In the dark corner of the city, she found another chance, a small diner, warm light spilling from its windows. The smell of soup drifted into the street. Making her mouth water, she stepped closer, her hand reaching for the door handle. Her heart beat fast. Could this be the one? Could someone finally listen? Inside, the diner was full of voices. Humans talking, eating, laughing. She pushed the door open. The warmth hit her face, and for a moment she almost smiled. She whispered to the man behind the counter, "Sir, please, can I work? I can wash dishes, clean tables, anything." The man looked at her from head to toe. His face hardened. "We don't hire beggars," he said coldly. His voice was loud enough for others to hear. The laughter stopped, then started again, crueler this time. "Look at her," someone said. "She thinks she belongs here." The girl's cheeks burned as if fire had touched them. She stepped back, her hand slipping from the door. The man waved at her to leave, and the sound of plates and laughter filled the air once more. The night deepened, and her hope grew thinner. She sat on the stone steps of a closed shop. Her body shook with cold. She pulled her knees close to her chest, trying to make herself smaller. The world moved around her, but no one stopped. Her eyes closed for a moment, but hunger would not let her rest. In the silence of her heart, she whispered, "Why does no one want me? Am I nothing?" The words vanished into the empty street, answered only by the hum of broken lights. She pushed herself to stand again, weak but not ready to give up. Every door had denied her, but she still walked. Her bare feet splashed through puddles, her eyes searching for even the smallest light. Finally, she reached the edge of the industrial sector, where the machines never slept. She looked at the tall gates of a factory. The guard stood there half asleep. She swallowed hard, her throat dry, and whispered, "One more try." She stepped forward. Lifting her hand to knock, her heart raced faster and faster. Suspense filled her chest. What would happen this time? Would they give her a chance? Or would another door close forever? The factory gates loomed tall in the dim light of the street lamps. Steam hissed from pipes above, and the sound of machines echoed through the night. The young alien girl stood at the edge, her hand trembling as she reached out. Her clothes were soaked from the rain, her thin frame shaking in the cold. Still, she knocked on the heavy iron gate. A guard with tired eyes opened the small viewing slit. His face wrinkled with annoyance. "What do you want at this hour?" he growled. She lowered her head and whispered, Work, please. I can clean, I can carry. I will do anything." Her voice was so weak it nearly broke in the air. The guard laughed, calling to the others. Another stray begging for scraps. Another guard leaned closer, shaking his head. "She is one of them. Not worth the trouble." The gate clanged shut louder than thunder in her ears. She pressed her forehead against the cold metal. But no mercy came. Slowly she stepped back. Her heart felt heavy, heavier than her empty stomach. The whispers of the guard stayed in her mind, reminding her of every rejection she had faced. Every door that closed was not just wood or steel. It was another piece of her soul shutting down. She walked into the streets again. The night was colder now, and fewer people remained outside. Neon signs buzzed and flickered, half dead, casting broken colors on the wet pavement. She pulled her arms close, hugging herself as if she could squeeze warmth from her bones. Her stomach roared in pain, so loud she almost thought others could hear. She had not eaten properly in 3 days. The hunger was no longer just in her belly. It had spread into her chest, into her arms, making every step weaker. Passing by a stall that was closing, she caught the smell of roasted meat. The old vendor looked at her with hard eyes. "No coins. No food," he said before she could even open her mouth. He drew the curtain down and locked the stall, leaving her standing in the dark with only the cruel scent of food in the air. The girl stumbled toward an alley, sitting on a broken crate. She pressed her hands against her thin stomach. Her eyes closing, her thoughts spun wildly. She had tried every way she knew, begging for work, offering her strength, even lowering her pride, yet nothing had opened. She thought of her home, the small world she had left behind, where her people once lived in peace, but the war had ended that. Her parents gone, her village burned, and now here she was, alone, unwanted, invisible. The memory brought tears, but she blinked them away. Tears would not feed her. A whisper escaped her lips, so soft she barely heard it herself. "If no one will hire me, then I will give them what they want." The words hung in the air, heavy, dangerous. Her heart pounded. She had always feared this moment, but hunger had cornered her. She rose to her feet, unsteady, and looked around. Her glowing alien eyes reflected the city lights in the distance. The human sector glimmered brighter than the rest of the city, full of noise and warmth. Humans were strict but powerful. Some were cruel, others indifferent, but maybe one of them would take her. If she offered more than just work, she hated the thought, hated herself for even thinking it. But hunger does not care for pride, and the cold does not wait for dignity. She took a deep breath, clutching the edges of her torn clothes tighter around her body. Her legs shook as she stepped out of the alley, turning toward the human streets. The walk felt endless, the rain had stopped, but the air carried a sharp chill that bit into her skin. She passed humans laughing near a tavern, workers walking home from the night shift, merchants locking up their stalls. Every face looked strong, fed, full of life. While she drifted like a shadow among them, she whispered again, "Just one, I need just one." Her voice cracked. The fear inside her screamed louder than her hunger, but the hunger kept pushing her forward. At the edge of the sector, she saw the glow of a factory still open. Workers streamed out, tired but talking, their boots heavy on the ground. She leaned against the wall, waiting. Her eyes darted from face to face, searching, wondering if she had the courage to do what her heart feared most. A human man stepped out last, his hands dirty with grease, his face lined with exhaustion. He looked ordinary, not rich, not cruel, just tired. She swallowed hard. Her throat dry, the words rose inside her, clawing their way out. Her feet moved on their own, carrying her closer. Her chest tightened, her hands shook, and when she finally stood in front of him, her voice trembled like a fragile flame. "Please," she whispered, "take me, I will give myself. I will be yours, just give me food, just let me live." Her eyes filled with tears that reflected the neon lights. Her voice broke in the night air. The silence stretched between them. Heavy, the human's face froze in shock, his eyes locking on hers, and for the first time, she wondered not whether a door would close, but whether she had opened something she could never take back. The human worker froze where he stood, his boots still wet from the factory floor, his hands black with grease. He had never expected words like those to reach his ears. Not here. Not from someone who looked so fragile and broken. The alien girl stood before him, trembling, her eyes glowing faintly under the dim streetlight. Her torn clothes clung to her thin frame, and her voice echoed in his mind. "Take me. I will give myself. Just give me food." For a long moment, he said nothing. The sounds of the city seemed to fade. Only her shaking breaths filled the space between them. She lowered her gaze, ashamed, her fingers twisting together as if bracing for rejection. He finally whispered, Why would you say that?" His voice was not angry, not cruel, only heavy with disbelief. Her lips trembled as she answered, "Because no one will hire me. I begged at every door. I offered work, strength, anything, but they all closed on me. Now I have nothing left to offer but myself." Her words cut deep, heavier than the cold rain that still dripped from the roofs. She looked up at him then, her eyes wet, her face pale with hunger and shame. The desperation in her voice was not the act of a liar. It was the truth of someone at the edge of survival. The man took a slow breath. He was tired, his shift had been long, and his heart had grown used to the hardness of the world. Yet looking at her, something inside him stirred. He saw not just a beggar, not just an alien, but a being who had been pushed until she broke. "You don't need to do this," he said quietly. His words surprised even himself. She blinked at him, confused. "But if I don't, I will die." Her knees weakened, and she almost collapsed. He caught her by the arm before she fell. Her skin was cold, thinner than it should be. She had not eaten properly in days. Her body was shaking, not from fear alone, but from hunger. He pulled off his old coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. She gasped, staring up at him as though she did not understand. No one had given her anything before, not warmth, not kindness, not even a glance without judgment. "You need food, not shame," he said firmly, guiding her gently away from the factory gates. She followed without resistance, her steps slow, as if she still did not believe what was happening. They walked down the quiet street until they reached a small diner at the corner. Its lights were dim, almost closing, but the man pushed the door open. The smell of warm bread and soup filled the air. The girl's eyes widened, her breath catching as hunger pulled her toward it. The man waved to the cook. "One more bowl, and some bread," he said, placing a few coins on the counter. The cook grumbled but obeyed, sliding the food forward. The girl stared at the bowl as though it were a treasure. She reached out with trembling hands, but paused, her voice breaking. "Is this really for me?" He nodded, pulling out a chair for her. "Eat," he said simply. She sat slowly, her hands shaking as she lifted the spoon. The first taste made her eyes close, tears slipping down her face as the warmth spread through her chest. She ate quickly, hungrily, as though every bite might vanish if she did not take it fast enough. The human sat across from her, silent, watching. Each spoonful she swallowed was like a battle she was winning against death itself. Her tears dripped into the soup. But she kept eating. When the bowl was empty, she clutched it tightly, as if afraid it would be taken away. She whispered, "Why did you help me? You don't know me. You should have turned me away like the others." He leaned forward, resting his arms on the table. His voice was steady. "Because no one deserves to starve. No one deserves to feel worthless. And you are not worthless." Her breath caught. Her heart raced. No one had ever said those words to her. For a moment she could not speak, only stare at him with wide, wet eyes. The weight of the night seemed lighter now. The noise of the city returned slowly, but around their small table, there was a strange silence, a space of safety. She lowered her head, whispering softly, "I offered myself to you. I thought that was all I had left, but you gave me food, not chains." The human shook his head. "You offered because the world pushed you to the edge, but I see more than what they see. I see someone who deserves a chance." Her chest tightened with emotion she could not name. Her hands clutched the coat he had given her. Still warm, still carrying his scent of work and smoke, she whispered again, almost like a prayer, "Thank you." But as she sat there, hope flickering in her heart, she did not notice the eyes watching from outside the diner. Not everyone in the city would be pleased to see an alien girl fed by a human worker. Not everyone would accept that kindness could cross such lines. And though her belly was finally full, danger was already gathering in the shadows. The diner grew quieter as the night stretched on. The last customers had left, and only the hum of the kitchen remained. The alien girl sat at the small wooden table, her hands clutching the empty bowl as if it were the last gift in the world. She still wore his coat around her shoulders, too large for her thin frame, but it held warmth she had not felt in years. The human worker leaned back in his chair, exhaustion still heavy in his eyes but his heart restless. He had seen suffering before, Many faces, many lives, but something about her had struck deeper. She was not just another beggar, not just another mouth left to starve. She was someone who had almost given away her last dignity just to live one more day. The girl's voice broke the silence. "You should not have helped me," she whispered. "They will not like it, humans, aliens. No one likes when someone breaks the rule." He frowned. "What rule?" "The rule that says people like me should disappear," she said softly, her glowing eyes staring into the table. "I am not useful, not wanted, not even safe to be seen with." His chest tightened at her words. He wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but the truth was there. He knew the whispers, the prejudice, the cruelty of the streets. He had seen it himself when others were turned away. He had done nothing then, but tonight felt different. Tonight he had made a choice. "You are not nothing," he said firmly. His voice cut through the air like steel. She looked up, her lips parting slightly in shock. No one had ever said that to her, not once, before he could say more. The bell above the diner door jingled. A group of men entered, 2 humans and an alien trader. Their eyes locked on the girl instantly. One of them sneered. "So it's true. You brought her in." The human worker stood, his jaw tightening. "She's just eating. Leave her be." But the tallest man laughed, stepping closer. "Eating, is that what you call it? We saw her begging before, offering herself like some cheap thing, and now she is here. With you." His words dripped with poison, loud enough for the girl to hear every syllable. Her face burned with shame. She pulled the coat tighter around herself, sinking lower in the chair. Her breath shook. She wanted to disappear, to vanish before more cruel words could cut her. The human worker's fist clenched. "Enough," he snapped. The men smirked, circling closer. "Why waste your coins? Why waste your time on her?" "She is not worth it," one said, slamming his hand against the counter. The alien trader added coldly, "People like her bring only trouble. Give her to us. We will take her away." The girl's heart stopped. Her body froze, her mind screamed that it was over. Every kindness she had just tasted was about to be ripped away. She stared at the man who had fed her, wondering if he would let them, wondering if she had hoped too soon. Silence filled the diner. The human worker stood between them and the girl, his broad shoulders blocking their path. His voice came low, steady, unshakable. "She is not going anywhere." The words hung heavy in the air. The men laughed harshly. "And what will you do, worker?" "Fight us for her." He did not move, did not waver. His eyes burned with quiet fire. "If I must," he said, "because she asked for food, not chains." "And I gave her my word," the girl gasped softly, her chest tightening with something she had not felt in years. Safety. He was not mocking her, not shoving her away. He was standing for her. The men exchanged looks, then stepped back with mutters of disgust. "You will regret this," the alien trader hissed. "No one protects the worthless forever." They slammed the door on their way out, leaving only the echo of their threat behind. The diner grew quiet again. The girl's hand shook as she lifted her gaze to him. Her lips trembled. Why would you do that for me?" He turned to her, his face still hard but his voice softer. "Because someone should have done it long ago." He sat back down, the weight of his choice settling heavy on his shoulders. He knew the whispers would grow, that the trouble would follow. But his heart was steady. He had made his choice. The girl's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were not only of shame. They were of something fragile, something new, hope. She pressed her hands against the coat, whispering, "Then, maybe I am not nothing after all." The human worker nodded once. "You are not nothing, and as long as I stand, you will not be alone." The city outside was still cruel, still waiting, but inside that small diner, under the flickering light, a new bond had been forged. A bond stronger than hunger, stronger than fear. And it began with a human's choice. Morning light spilled across the city, turning the wet streets into silver mirrors. The alien girl walked beside the human worker, still wearing his old coat. Her stomach was no longer empty, but her heart remained heavy with fear. She kept glancing behind, afraid those men from the diner would return, afraid the world would punish her for daring to eat. The human noticed her silence. "You are safe," he said quietly. His voice was calm, but his eyes scanned the street with care. He knew safety was a fragile thing, easily broken. He had already made his choice, but he wondered how far it would take him. They reached the diner again that evening. The cook frowned when he saw her cleaning the tables. "You bring trouble," he muttered, but the human ignored him. The girl wiped each table slowly, carefully as though afraid to make mistakes. Her hands trembled, yet her eyes glowed faintly with determination. Soon whispers began to spread. At first it was only the neighbors. "Did you hear? A human gave food to one of them." Then the market stalls joined in. Not only food, he let her work, he let her stay. The whispers carried like wind. From one street to another, some voices were curious. "Maybe she is different." Some were cruel. "He is wasting his life on trash," others were afraid. "If she works there, more will come." But one thing was clear. Their small act had been seen, and the city was talking. The girl noticed the stares. Every time she carried a plate or washed a dish, eyes followed her through the diner window. She wanted to shrink, to hide. Yet when she glanced at the human, standing steady by the counter, she found the strength to keep moving. One night, a small alien boy appeared at the door. His clothes were ragged, his eyes sunken. He looked at her with awe and whispered, "They said you work here now. Is it true?" She froze, unsure if she should answer. The boy whispered again, "If they let you, maybe they will let me too." Her chest ached at his words.
She knelt and touched his shoulder gently.
"Maybe one day," she whispered back. The boy ran off into the dark, leaving her with a heart that felt both heavy and light. For the first time, someone had looked at her not with hate, but with hope. The next morning, more rumors came. An old alien woman muttered to a crowd, "If one human can take her in, maybe the rest of us were wrong." But others spat on the ground. "It is weakness, kindness only brings ruin." The city was dividing, one whisper at a time. Inside the diner, the girl tried to work harder, scrubbing floors until her knees ached, washing dishes until her hands burned. She feared every mistake would cost her everything. Yet each time she faltered, the human worker was there, steady and calm. "It is enough," he would say. "You are doing well." Those words planted something in her heart, something she had never dared to grow before, belief. But the backlash was not far. One evening, as she left to fetch water, a group of rival workers blocked her path. They sneered, "So you think you belong now?" One shoved her shoulder. "Do you think one human's kindness makes you equal to us?" She shook her head quickly. "No, I only want to work, to live." Her voice was soft. Trembling, the men laughed cruelly. "Then beg again, beg like you did before. Let us hear you say it." Her knees wobbled, fear choking her throat. She wanted to run, but her feet would not move. Before they could push further, a familiar shadow appeared. The human worker stepped into the alley, his eyes hard. "Enough," he said. His voice left no room for argument. The men spat and walked away, muttering threats. The girl clung to the water jug, her heart racing. "They will not stop," she whispered. He nodded slowly. "I know." That night, she lay awake in the small corner he had given her at the back of the diner. The blanket was thin, but it was more than she had ever had. She stared at the ceiling, her mind filled with questions. Why had he chosen her? Why risk himself? Was this kindness only for now, or could it last? Her thoughts spun. But one thing was certain. The world had noticed. She was no longer invisible. Her hunger had turned to desperation. Her desperation had turned to survival. And now survival was turning into something larger, something that frightened her as much as it gave her hope. The city was watching, and whispers of change had begun. The days grew heavier as the whispers turned into shouts. What began as murmurs in the alleys and markets now spread through the factories and taverns. People were no longer just talking about the alien girl who found work in a diner. They were taking sides. Some said, "If she can work, maybe others deserve the same." Others spat, "She is a parasite dragging humans down." The divide deepened, and at the center of it stood one tired human worker and one fragile alien girl who only wanted to survive. The diner was no longer just a place to eat. It had become a stage. Every time she carried food to a table or cleaned a dish, eyes followed her, some curious, some hateful, some silently rooting for her. The weight of those stares pressed on her shoulders until her back ached. One evening, the trouble finally boiled over. A group of rival workers stormed into the diner, their boots pounding against the floor. Their leader, a broad man with arms scarred from years of labor, slammed his hand on the counter. "We warned you," he barked, "but you didn't listen. You think feeding her makes her one of us? You think giving her work makes her equal?" The cook froze, staring at the human worker, but said nothing. Customers whispered nervously. Some slipped out the door, not wanting to be caught in the storm. The alien girl stood at the far end, a rag still in her hands. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought everyone could hear it. She wanted to run, but her feet were stuck. She knew this moment had been coming since the night he first gave her food. The leader sneered, pointing at her. She is filth. She offered herself in the street like an animal. Everyone knows it. And you, he jabbed a finger at the human. You are a fool for protecting her. Worse than a fool, a traitor. Her face burned with shame. The rag slipping from her fingers. Tears stung her eyes, not because of the insult, but because it was true. She had offered herself, she had reached the lowest point, and now it was being thrown like a knife in front of everyone. The human worker's jaw tightened. He stepped forward, placing himself between her and the men. His voice was calm but strong. Enough, the leader laughed. Enough, no, we've had enough of you, enough of her kind if she stays here. We will tear this place down, the girl gasped. Her knees weakening, she whispered. I should go, please. I don't want you hurt because of me. Her voice was desperate. Trembling, but the human did not move aside. He shook his head slowly. No, you will not leave. Not like this. The tension grew thick. Fists clenched, eyes narrowed. The rival workers shifted closer. The smell of sweat and anger filling the air. Chairs scraped as the last customer slipped away, leaving only silence in the storm waiting to break. The leader growled, Step aside, or we will throw her into the street ourselves. The human's chest rose and fell with steady breaths. He looked at the girl behind him, her glowing eyes filled with fear. Then he turned back to the men. His voice rang clear. She is not yours to throw away. She is not an animal. She is not trash. She is under my roof, my word, and my protection. The diner shook with the force of his words. The girl's breath caught. Her tears spilled, not from shame this time, but from something fierce and unfamiliar. Someone had claimed her not as property, but as a person worth standing for. The rival workers hesitated, their confidence shaken by the steel in his tone. The leader's lips curled into a snarl. You think one man can change the city? You think one human's mercy will erase what she is? The human's eyes burned like fire. I don't need to change the city, he said. I just need to change what is in front of me. And that is enough. The silence was heavy, then broken by the scrape of boots as the men backed away. Their leader spat on the floor. This isn't over. You'll regret it. Both of you. They stormed out, the door slamming so hard it rattled the windows. The girl sank to the floor, shaking. Her hands covered her face. Why did you do that? They will come back. They will hurt you. He knelt beside her, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. Because someone had to. Because if I let them take you now, then all the doors that closed on you will win, and I will not let them win. Her sobs softened, her breath coming in shaky gasps. She looked up at him, her voice breaking. No one has ever stood for me, not once, not until you. He met her gaze, his own steady. Then let this be the first time, and not the last. The diner was quiet again, but outside, the city buzzed with whispers sharper than ever. Some whispered admiration, some whispered hate. The line had been drawn, and now both sides waited. The girl sat in the corner later that night, clutching his coat tighter than before. She was afraid, yes, but beneath the fear was something stronger, a seed of belief. She had been denied, humiliated, and nearly broken. But because of him, she had tasted dignity, and deep inside her she knew. The backlash had only just begun. The diner stood quiet after the storm, but the silence outside was broken with murmurs. The confrontation had spread like fire through the city. By morning, everyone knew the story. The human worker who had stood against his own kind to protect an alien girl. For some it was madness, for others it was courage. But no one could ignore it. The girl woke that day with heavy eyes. She had not slept. Her dreams had been filled with fear, shadows of the men who threatened to return. Yet when she looked at the coat around her shoulders, still carrying his warmth, her heart steadied. She stepped out into the street. And for the first time in many years, people looked at her differently. Some glared, whispering cruel words, worthless, parasite, but others watched quietly. No hatred in their gaze, only wonder at the market. An old alien woman muttered, "She is the one, the human's girl." "The one who works," children whispered. "If she can do it, maybe we can too." Every whisper cut into her, but also lifted her. She was no longer invisible, no longer forgotten. Back at the diner, she scrubbed the floors with steady hands. Every ragged breath she took was filled with both fear and strength. She wanted to prove that she was not a burden, not trash, but someone who could work, someone who could earn her place. The human worker watched her quietly, his own body tired from endless shifts, but his eyes calm. He knew the backlash would return, but he also knew he had already chosen his path. By evening, trouble did return. The broad man from before came back with more behind him. Their boots shook the floor as they entered. The cook froze, slipping into the kitchen. Unwilling to get caught in the fight, the alien girl's heart raced. She gripped the counter, trembling. The leader's voice thundered, "We warned you. And now we end it." The human worker stepped forward, his jaw set. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The men laughed cruelly. One human cannot stand against all of us. But even as they sneered, none moved closer. His eyes burned with such fire that it made them pause. The girl found her voice, weak but clear. "I am not worthless," she whispered. Her words shook, but they reached every ear in the diner. "I begged. I offered myself because I thought I had nothing left. But I was wrong. I can work, I can serve. I can live with dignity. I am not worthless." The rival workers stared. Startled, they had expected fear, silence, surrender. "Not this," the leader snarled, but his voice was less certain now. "You think words change anything?" The human worker's voice rose. "Steady and strong, words can change everything. And so can choices. I made mine. I chose to see her worth when no one else did, and I will keep choosing that. No matter what you say." The men shifted uneasily, some lowered their eyes. Unwilling to push further, the leader spat again, but his voice lacked the fire it carried before. "This isn't over," he growled, pulling his men away. Their footsteps faded into the night. The diner fell silent. The girl collapsed to her knees, tears streaming down her face. She had spoken, she had declared her worth, and someone had stood beside her to make it true. The human worker knelt, lifting her gently, his voice soft now. "You see, they cannot take what you refuse to give, and you did not give them your worth tonight. You held it. You claimed it." Her chest ached with emotion, her tears would not stop. "You saved me," she whispered. "But more than that. You made me believe," he smiled faintly, tired but certain, "because it was always there. You only needed someone to remind you." The days that followed were not easy. The city did not suddenly change. There were still glares, still whispers, still those who hated. But there were also others, small groups who began to question, small hearts who began to see the alien girl worked every day at the diner. Her hands raw, her body sore, but her spirit steady. Each dish washed, each table cleaned, each task done was proof that she was more than the names they called her. Children sometimes peeked through the windows watching her. One small boy whispered, "She works just like us, she is like us." Those words spread. Quiet but steady, like roots under stone. And in the middle of it all, the human worker stood. Tired, worn, but unyielding. He had chosen once, and he chose again every day one evening. As the sun set behind the city, the girl sat on the diner steps. Her glowing eyes looked up at the sky, her voice soft but filled with new strength. "I thought I had to give away myself to survive, but I was wrong. I had to find someone who saw me as more than worthless. And I found you." The human stood beside her, silent, his gaze steady on the horizon. She leaned against his arm, the coat still around her shoulders, and for the first time in her life, she did not feel like nothing. She felt like someone worth protecting, someone worth believing in. And though the world outside was still cruel, still divided, a spark had been lit, and sometimes one spark was enough to begin a fire that could change everything.